My own family didn't even invite me.
My name's Marcus Patterson, and I've spent the better part of 38 years being exactly what people needed me to be when they needed it. Dependable, forgettable. The guy who shows up, does the thing, and vanishes before anyone thinks to say thanks. It's not that I lack ambition or backbone. It's that somewhere along the way, I decided being useful was safer than being visible. Visibility invites scrutiny, and scrutiny invites judgment. Better to be the steady pair of hands in the background than the man everyone dissects under the spotlight. At least, that's what I used to believe. I work as a compliance auditor for transportation companies, a job designed for people like me. I arrive unannounced, comb through binders of safety protocols, walk the hangars, check the logbooks, and quietly flag the errors that might one day turn into headlines. Nobody thanks you for the accident that never happens. There are no champagne toasts for invisible victories. But in my mind, I was doing something that mattered even if no one else could see it. That used to be enough. Then I married into the Whitmore family. The Whitmores are what you'd call old money adjacent. They're not Rockefellers, but they orbit in the same social circles. Country clubs, Aspen ski trips, summer charity galas where everyone pretends cocktails and silent auctions are acts of salvation. They're the kind of people who send out Christmas cards shot by professional photographers in matching sweaters, while my parents used to send neighbors homemade fudge wrapped in wax paper. I come from a world where love was measured in hours of sweat and grease-stained shirts, where a man showed devotion by fixing a leaky pipe at midnight or sanding down a splintered deck before the grandkids came over. When I married Jessica, I thought I was simply bringing that ethic into her world. A quiet, steady presence, the man who could be counted on. For 7 years, I became the family's silent backbone, the handyman they never asked for but somehow always expected. I repaired their AC units when August heat turned the house into an oven. I climbed rickety ladders to rewire holiday lights while they sipped mulled wine indoors. When Amanda's boyfriend bailed on moving day, I was the one sweating through 3 flights of stairs with a sectional sofa wedged in my arms. When Morgan fell short on funds for her baby shower, I covered the deposit without a word. No one asked me to. No one ever offered to pay me back. I never mentioned it, because somewhere deep down I believed that being indispensable would earn me belonging. But usefulness is not the same as acceptance. There's a difference between being needed and being wanted. I began to notice the cracks. Amanda's clipped tone when I entered a room, like my presence shifted the air. Patricia, my mother-in-law, never called to ask how I was doing. Only when something needed fixing or explaining. David, the patriarch, liked to offer what he called playful ribbing, but phrases like, "You're not really one of us, Marcus," but points for effort, cut deeper than he realized. For a long time, I told myself it was harmless, that it was just their way. It wasn't. The breaking point came at David's retirement celebration at the Lakeside Country Club. I was there hours before the first guest, stringing up lights, troubleshooting a stubborn projector, and making a last-minute run for 2 cases of wine Jessica had forgotten. By the time guests arrived, my shirt was damp, and my hands smelled faintly of electrical tape and cork dust. I stood by the bar, smiling politely, offering help when asked, blending into the background like I always did. When it came time for speeches, I raised my glass and gave a short toast. Nothing elaborate, just a few honest words about David's dedication and what he had built. The applause was polite, restrained. Jessica leaned in, said, "That was nice," and then drifted away into another conversation where I wasn't included. But what truly broke me was the seating chart, a carefully arranged board with name cards color-coded by table. I scanned it once, twice, a third time. My name wasn't there. I stood frozen, staring at the board like maybe the ink would rearrange itself if I just waited long enough. That's when I heard Amanda behind me, her voice dripping with amusement as she spoke to a friend about Jessica's charity project. Our eyes met for half a second, and I caught the smirk fading from her lips. She didn't apologize. She didn't even stop talking. She just raised her wine glass and went on laughing. That was the moment it all crystallized. I wasn't family. I wasn't even truly a guest. I was a tool, convenient, disposable, tolerated as long as I served a purpose. All those weekends spent repairing, hauling, covering costs, all of it meaningless because none of it bought me a seat at their table. I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout or demand recognition. That's not who I am. Instead, I slipped outside into the cold night air, where the sting of winter couldn't compare to the frost settling in my chest. Later, when the night wound down, I loaded Jessica's car with supplies, drove her home in silence, and listened to her laugh at photos and jokes I wasn't a part of. I kept my eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel, the dependable ghost I'd always been. But in that silence, something shifted. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if being invisible was worth the cost of disappearing completely. That night, staring at our bedroom ceiling, I whispered to myself, maybe they don't see you because you were never meant to matter. But I saw them clearly now. That was when everything changed. The next evening, still at the retirement party, conversation turned to the family barbecue happening the next day. Their annual tradition. Everyone was buzzing about it. Menu plans, guest lists, setup details. I waited for Jessica to loop me in, assign me a task, mention our arrival time, ask me to help with chairs like usual. She didn't. Trying to be helpful, I stepped into the conversation. I'll grab dessert tomorrow. That bakery you loved last spring, they've got peach cobbler again. Jessica paused. That pause stretched into eternity. She looked at her wine, swirled it thoughtfully, then looked up with this strange glint. Then she laughed. Not loud, just dismissive, a sound effect to cushion a blow. Oh, you're not invited, she said casually, like commenting on weather. I blinked. What? She smiled like it was perfectly reasonable. It's more of an intimate family thing. Amanda, scrolling her phone beside her, snorted and turned the screen toward me. Digital proof, full seating arrangements, printed programs in gold, MC notes, even an opening prayer slide. My name appeared nowhere. It's just simpler this way, Jessica said, shrugging. You know how Mom is. She wanted it streamlined. Streamlined, like I was clutter. I looked at her, searching for guilt or hesitation or anything human. Nothing. Just that easy calm she wore around her family. A different Jessica. A Whitmore Jessica. I smiled slightly, just enough to avoid a scene. Didn't argue, didn't push back, just nodded once, took a final sip, set my glass down, and walked toward the exit. Nobody followed, nobody called out. The conversation resumed immediately behind me. More talk about side dishes and lawn games. Like I'd evaporated. I sat in my car for a long time. Not angry, not hurt, just empty. And that emptiness filled rapidly with clarity. They'd made their choice. They always had. I just hadn't seen it. I was never family. I was a utility. Someone you use for moving boxes or covering bills. Never someone you actually want at your table. But here's what they forgot in their perfect little planning. I'd booked the venue, not Jessica, not Patricia, not David, me, Marcus Patterson, the invisible man with the credit card and organizational skills. I pulled out my phone, opened the confirmation email. There it was, the Whitmore family barbecue, reserved under my name, paid with my card. I stared at it, thumb hovering. This wasn't spite, it wasn't revenge, it was correction. I hit edit reservation, scrolled down, clicked cancel. Catering deposit, gone. Sound equipment, canceled. Even the bounce house Amanda insisted on for her kids, deleted. I watched the digital confirmations roll in, each one like fresh oxygen. Then I turned off my phone, leaned back, and laughed once. Just enough. I slept soundly that night, not from pride in what I'd done, but because I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Real, bone-deep stillness. I didn't hear Jessica come home. She slipped into bed hours later, probably assuming I was too embarrassed or sensitive to talk. But I was awake. Morning light filtered through curtains, soft and warm. Usually the kind that inspired lazy weekends. But there was no breakfast cooking, just silence and strong coffee I'd made. I sat at the counter with my mug, phone beside me, waiting. At 11:31 a.m., the first text arrived. Jessica. Marcus, what did you do? Not good morning, not, are you okay? Just confusion wrapped in blame. I didn't reply, just sipped coffee and refreshed. 5 minutes later, Patricia texted, Marcus, we're at the park and everything's gone. That made me chuckle, not cruelly, just at the surreal absurdity. Nobody checked on me the night before, but the moment their party collapsed, I suddenly existed again. More messages flooded in. Amanda sent 3 rapid-fire texts with no punctuation. Did you seriously cancel the caterers? You're being childish. You're ruining everything. I didn't open them. Just let them pile up like falling dominoes. Jessica called 3 times. I let it ring. Third call, I enabled Do Not Disturb and turned on the TV. Some home renovation show. A guy with a nail tool talking about open concept kitchens. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. No adrenaline, no guilt. I wasn't seeking revenge. This was retraction. I removed my name, money, and energy from their table. I finally matched their actions with my own. It wasn't about the barbecue. It was about what it represented. Years of standing beside them, hands full of tools, arms sore from lifting furniture, wallet lighter from unreimbursed expenses. I wasn't family. I was a resource they dusted off when convenient and shoved aside when done. They just didn't expect the resource to have an off switch. Around noon, Jessica came home. I heard the door, her heels across hardwood, her sharp gasp seeing me calmly sipping coffee like nothing happened. She didn't start with a question. She started with accusation. "You humiliated us," she snapped, throwing her purse on the couch. I didn't look up. "I wasn't invited." She exhaled sharply like I was being unreasonable. "That's not how family handles things." "Good thing I'm not family then," I said quietly but clearly. That stopped her. She blinked like I'd spoken another language. She walked to the island, leaned both hands on the edge, stared at me. "You made a scene?" "No," I replied. "I removed myself from yours." Her mouth opened, then closed. She wanted to fight but couldn't find the angle. I stood, rinsed my mug, dried it with the towel she always left crumpled. I wasn't rushed, didn't need to be. She tried again. "Do you have any idea how that made us look?" "You mean the people who excluded their son-in-law from a family event using his money?" I tilted my head slightly. "Yeah, I have a pretty good idea." Her voice dropped, more controlled. "You made your point." I turned to face her fully. "No, I made my boundary." That's when it clicked. I saw realization dawn in her eyes. The version of Marcus who swallowed everything and smiled through it was gone, and she didn't know how to handle this version. Later, I checked my phone. The tone had shifted. Messages stopped being angry and turned confused. Some tried backtracking. Amanda sent a passive-aggressive, "Could have just talked to us." Patricia left a dramatic voice memo about being deeply disappointed in my lack of maturity. I didn't respond to anything. Instead, I screenshotted the payment receipt showing my name, date, and confirmation number. Sent it to the family group chat with no caption, no commentary. Then I muted the thread. I returned to the couch, turned the volume low, leaned back, and listened to the sound of peace. The silence wasn't empty. It was restorative. Jessica didn't speak to me for 2 days. No words, no apologies, no attempts to fix what she knew was broken. She moved through our house like a ghost, slamming drawers, shutting doors too hard, walking with unnecessary force. Each sound was performance. Not anger, but wounded pride. She didn't want to fix things. She wanted to punish me for not letting it go. I didn't flinch, not once. By day 3, the family launched damage control. Patricia posted a smiling group photo from the non-existent barbecue captioned, "Sometimes the best memories come from unexpected moments. Whitmores always make it work." The photo was awkward, clearly staged in front of an empty pavilion with half-set tables. David looked visibly confused. Jessica untagged me from old photos like I was a phase she was erasing. Amanda went nuclear, unfollowed me everywhere, sent indirect tweets about energy vampires and grown men who act like children. I didn't respond. Didn't open the apps. Because I wasn't trying to win anymore. I had nothing to prove. That's when I realized Jessica wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I reacted in a way she couldn't control. She wasn't mourning broken trust. She was grieving lost compliance. My silence wasn't passive. It was active resistance. The more I stayed quiet, the more frantic they became. Amanda sent a long text, 4 paragraphs of sarcasm disguised as concern. "I just don't understand how you could throw everything away over a little misunderstanding. You know how Mom gets. You should have handled this like an adult." I read it once, laughed softly, then archived it. Jessica began to circle. She'd hover in rooms with me, folding laundry she normally ignored, wiping clean counters, asking passive questions about things she already knew. "Did you see the mail? Does your car key fob need batteries?" I answered minimally. Short, polite, detached. The more neutral I became, the more agitated she got. She wanted me to snap, wanted a blow-up to justify her outrage. I wouldn't give her that. By Friday, nobody from the Whitmores had reached out again. Maybe they realized I wasn't budging. Maybe they were still spinning the story. Either way, I didn't care. I had my peace. And then something strange happened. I started liking it. The quiet, the freedom. I went to bed without decoding Jessica's moods. Ate dinner without interruptions or snide comments about my basic tastes or their endless humble brags. I sat on the balcony at night and actually tasted my coffee for the first time in years. I didn't miss them. I didn't miss her. One night, scrolling through old photos, I found one from our first anniversary. Small mountain cabin, snow in background, fire crackling beside us. Jessica in a red sweater laughing into cider. I remembered taking that photo. I remembered thinking, I've finally found someone who sees me. Looking now, I realized something else. I wasn't in the photo. I was always behind the camera, always watching her shine, always holding the frame, but never inside it. Small thing. But it broke something loose. A truth I hadn't wanted to admit. Maybe she never really saw me at all. And maybe I'd finally stopped trying to make her. By Saturday morning, silence had transformed from standoff to sanctuary. I brewed coffee, took a long shower, pulled out my laptop, and researched short-term apartments nearby. Not because I'd decided yet, but because I wanted to see what life could look like without the noise, without constant effort, without performance. Nothing makes people panic like the sound of your peace. And I was falling in love with mine. Then came a Wednesday text from Tyler, Jessica's older brother, the one sibling who seemed distant but never cruel, who rarely spoke at family dinners and never joined when I was the punchline. His message, honestly, I don't blame you, that was messed up, you deserve better. That hit differently. Not an apology, not an offer to fix things, just acknowledgement. I typed a response, paused, deleted it. Instead, I just liked the message. That was enough. Tyler texted again Friday. You free tomorrow? I'll grill. No drama. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, unsure if this was a trap or genuine. I typed back, sure, what time? Saturday evening arrived with light breeze and layered sky, soft orange with purple edges. I pulled up to Tyler's modest house on the neighborhood's edge. Nothing showy, just a driveway, 2 folding chairs in the yard, meat already sizzling. Nina opened the door before I could knock. Hey, Marcus, come in. Shoes off, please. Emma's in her no-shoe phase. Their daughter, Emma, 7 and small for her age, peeked around the corner holding a remote control and battered toy car. It's broken, she announced like urgent news. I crouched down. Let me look. She handed it over like sacred treasure. I sat on the floor with her for 10 minutes, unscrewing the battery casing, rewiring a loose connector, showing her how the antenna needed to be upright. She watched closely, eyes wide. You fixed it, she shouted, racing it in circles around kitchen tile. Tyler chuckled from the backyard. Guess you still got the magic touch. Thanks for coming. Nina was nervous you'd say no. I shrugged, taking a beer. Didn't see a reason to. We settled into rhythm. Just the 4 of us. No tension, no side eyes, no verbal landmines. Nina played acoustic music from her phone, and Emma flitted between us with her car, offering updates like a commentator. Dinner was simple. Grilled chicken, corn, garlic bread Nina baked herself. I'd forgotten what food tasted like without the pressure of perfection. No platters arranged by color. No Pinterest-dictated table settings. Just warm food, warm people, space to breathe. Nina passed me another drink halfway through. Tyler says you're the only one in that family with a spine. I nearly laughed. Can't be true. I'm the guy who used to fix their gutters in rain. Yeah, but you're also the guy who finally stopped letting them walk over him, she said. That counts. Tyler nodded. About time someone held up a mirror. I leaned back, staring up as stars blinked into view one by one. I hadn't done that in years, just looked up. Felt night stretch over me like a blanket that didn't need straightening. In that moment, I realized I wasn't sad. I didn't miss Jessica. Didn't miss the noise, the image management, the endless performance of being a good husband to a woman who graded me on a scale I never understood. After dinner, we sat around a small fire pit. Emma had gone to bed. Nina excused herself to clean up. Tyler and I sat in comfortable silence until he spoke. They don't know how to deal with someone who doesn't beg for approval, he said. I looked over. You mean me? I mean you now. The old you, maybe. But the guy who canceled a whole event because he got disrespected? That guy scares them. I chuckled. Good. Tyler leaned forward, poking the fire. I think they forgot you were a person. You just became furniture. The guy with the toolbox. The guy who shows up and disappears when they're done, I finished. He turned to me, voice quiet. I see you, Marcus. For what it's worth. That hit harder than expected. It wasn't grand or loud, but it was real. Driving home, I passed the Whitmore house. Lights glowing, cars along the curb. Another dinner party, no doubt. Jessica's voice probably carrying through walls. Amanda laughing like she owned the air. Patricia orchestrating everything. I didn't slow down, didn't roll down the window, didn't feel bitter. Just free. It hit me then. Not every open door needs walking through. Some are meant to stay closed. Some remind you that not all rooms are worth entering, even if the table looks pretty. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man shut out of a family. I felt like someone who finally walked out. Jessica cracked on a Tuesday morning. No warning, just silence over coffee. Until suddenly there wasn't. "Can we talk?" she asked, not quite looking at me, hands wrapped tight around her mug. I set my spoon down. "Sure." She sat across from me, posture too straight, face composed but cracking at corners, like someone preparing for a deposition, not a conversation with her husband. "I wanted to explain," she began softly. "The barbecue thing. It was Amanda's idea, not mine. She thought maybe you'd make it awkward with Mom after that thing last Thanksgiving." I raised an eyebrow. "The thing where I refused to fix the sink during dessert?" Jessica shifted. "It wasn't about that. They just thought it might be easier, less tense." "And you agreed?" She hesitated. That half second where guilt tries making room, but pride doesn't step aside. I didn't fight it. That landed with a dull thud. I waited, letting silence stretch, watching her squirm. She hated quiet when it wasn't under her control. "But I didn't mean for it to go like that," she added quickly. "I didn't think you'd take it so personally." I leaned forward slightly. "That's the problem, Jessica. You didn't think about me at all." She blinked, clearly not expecting that tone. "You didn't think how it would feel being left out. You didn't think what it meant for me to find out like that, at a table I helped set up, holding a drink I paid for, standing next to people I thought I'd earned some place with." I shook my head. "You didn't think. You just let it happen." She rubbed her forehead, guilt fighting through. "I don't know what you want me to say." "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. "Did you think I didn't deserve to be there? Or did you just not care enough to make sure I was—" Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No answer came. Instead, she offered what she always did when cornered. Compromise without substance. "I can fix it. You can come to the next one. Dinner at Mom's. I'll make sure you're on the list." I stared at her. On the list. Like I was a contractor, not a husband. Like my presence was conditional, not assumed. "Let me ask you something," I said slowly. "If I show up next time, am I a guest or a ghost?" She swallowed hard. "I don't want to be tolerated, Jessica. I want to be chosen." Her expression flickered. For a brief moment she looked down, then away, like she could outrun the truth in my words. I pushed my chair back and stood. I wasn't angry. Just done. I'm not asking to be treated like royalty, but I've spent years standing in corners fixing things, paying for things, showing up without being seen. And if the best you can offer now is a pity invitation out of guilt, then you haven't heard a word I've said. Her voice came out smaller than expected. "So what? You're giving up?" I shook my head. "I already gave and gave and gave. What I'm doing now is walking away." I didn't storm out, didn't slam doors, just went to the guest room and closed the door. She didn't follow. Not that night, not the next morning. And maybe that was the clearest answer of all. I told her the full truth the next morning, not with yelling, not with dramatics, just with calm precision that comes when you've already left a place mentally long before your feet follow. She stood in the kitchen doorway, clutching coffee like armor, eyes rimmed with exhaustion that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from unraveling control. For once, she wasn't dressed for the day. No lipstick, no blazer, just a faded college shirt and cotton shorts. "I don't want to be tolerated," I said, stirring coffee slowly. "I want to be chosen." She leaned against the frame, brow furrowed. "So what? You're done?" "I already was, you just didn't notice." The silence that followed wasn't sad. It was still, hollow. She didn't argue, didn't beg. That confirmed it for me. There was no fight because nothing remained to fight for. I packed slowly, not from uncertainty, but deliberation. I took what was mine. Tools, books, shirts she never liked, but I wore anyway. I left the expensive watch she got our 3rd anniversary. It always felt more like performance than gift. Left the tie she bought to help you fit in at family functions, because now I knew that tie was never for me. It was for them. I didn't touch her things. Didn't write a long note. Just short, folded neatly under her favorite ceramic mug on the kitchen table. You don't have to remember the people you used, but they remember you every time you laugh at them. That was all. Not from bitterness or spite, but because I knew she'd read it again and again, deciding if I meant it as threat, warning, or goodbye. It was all three. The apartment I moved into was nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, smelled like fresh paint and something faintly lemony. No view, no fireplace. But the lock worked. Water pressure was solid, and silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like reset. I set up essentials. Coffee maker, lamp, mattress I'd bought online that expanded slowly across the floor. No welcome home, no familiar footsteps behind me. Yet I smiled. Not from happiness, but because I wasn't lying to myself anymore. That weekend, I went hiking alone for the first time in years. Didn't take the trail Jessica always picked with flat loops for easy selfies. I picked something rugged, steeper, noisy with birds and wind and honest effort that left calves aching. I sat on a crooked bench, let sun hit my face. Didn't check my phone. Didn't think about what they were doing. Didn't wonder if anyone noticed I was gone, because I finally did. I noticed myself again. I realized I hadn't really seen myself in years. Not as I was, just as utility, a role, a husband-shaped thing to fit someone else's design. But now I was sore from the hike, hair damp with sweat, legs scratched from branches, but I felt human, present, whole. That night I fell asleep to ceiling fan hum, not the cold edge of a woman who only remembered I existed when I was useful. No fake apologies, no one hurling silence like a tool, just stillness. Jessica texted once that evening, just one line. So this is it. I read it, then turned off my phone. No response was the answer. Some things don't deserve closure. Some things don't get ribbons tied around them. Sometimes the cleanest goodbye is walking away without turning back. Next morning, I opened blinds in my new place and stood barefoot on hardwood. Light poured across the room, touching bare walls and unassembled furniture like a spotlight on a blank stage. Didn't feel like loss. Felt like beginning. 6 months later, my living room smelled like barbecue sauce, vanilla candles, and something unmistakably warm that didn't come from a thermostat. It came from laughter, from overlapping voices, from a room filled not with people who shared blood, but people who shared respect. I was hosting my first birthday dinner in years. Not grand, no ballroom, no curated playlist, just 7 people. My closest work friend, my downstairs neighbor who once helped carry a broken shelf up 3 flights, a guy from the auto shop who'd become an unlikely confidant, and Tyler, Nina, and Emma, who burst through the door holding a handmade card decorated in more glitter than paper. "For you," she shouted. "It has a dinosaur in a party hat." And it did. A crooked green T-Rex with sparkly teeth and a balloon tied to its tail. I bent down, taking it like it was priceless. "This might be the best card I've ever gotten." She beamed and ran off. Nina leaned in, handed me foil-covered pan. Mac and cheese, real kind, with 3 cheeses and no judgment. The table wasn't set with matching plates. Chairs didn't belong together. I borrowed a few from the building manager who said, "You finally throwing a party, Patterson?" with a wink. I didn't call it a party. Just said I was having dinner with good people. I grilled ribs, burned the first batch a little. Nobody cared. Drinks were cold. Music was old soul playlist I liked. Tyler brought his famous grilled corn. Emma insisted on setting the table fancy, which meant every napkin had a crayon drawing tucked under it. We sat, we ate, we laughed. Not once did I wonder if I belonged. Not once did I feel like a shadow at someone else's spotlight edge. At one point, Nina raised her glass, tapped it gently with her fork. The room quieted. "To Marcus," she said, smiling effortlessly. "To the man who knew when to walk away and had courage to finally say, 'I deserve more.'" Glasses clinked. My throat tightened. Not from sadness, but because I was full. Full in a way I hadn't been in years. I looked around the table. No monogram napkins, no family crest, no forced smiles, just real ones. A guy from my building leaned in, wiping barbecue sauce off his chin. "Man, you know how to host," I laughed. "That's just code for, you didn't overthink it." He grinned. Exactly. Later that night, when most dishes were done and Emma had fallen asleep with her head on Nina's lap, Tyler joined me on the small balcony, handed me a beer, looked out into quiet night. "You did it," he said. "Did what?" "Built something new." I let the words sink in, not like compliment, like confirmation. Something true, something earned. "I didn't know I needed to," I said, until I left what I thought I had. "Yeah, well," he said, cracking open his bottle. "Sometimes the family you build makes more sense than the one you married into." We sat in silence, watching streetlights flicker and cars roll by. I thought about old days. Dinners where I dressed right, said right things, paid the bill, smiled through condescension, went home feeling emptier than when I arrived. I thought about Jessica's laugh when she told me I wasn't invited, the smirk on Amanda's face, how I stood there, invisible in plain sight. And now here I was. Second-floor apartment, folding chairs, glitter-glue dinosaurs, laughter spilling from a place that felt lived in, not performed. I wasn't trying to be part of their family anymore. I'd built my own. Not from defiance, not to prove a point, but because peace is the kind of thing that doesn't shout. It hums. It moves through spaces you didn't know needed filling, and it stays. When the last guest left and the apartment fell into post-celebration hush, I turned off lights, sat at the table, looked at empty plates, crumpled napkins, sticky fingerprints on glass sides. Evidence not of party, but of presence. This time I wasn't standing in shadows. I was at the head of the table,